Billionaire walked in and found his maid alone. The secret she revealed left him speechless. He came home early that day, just 1 hour early. But sometimes, 1 hour can change everything. 1 hour can shift the entire course of a life. 1 hour can open doors that have been closed for years. 1 hour can bring light into darkness that seemed permanent. The rain was falling outside. Soft rain, quiet rain, gentle rain. The kind that makes you want to stay inside and think about life. The kind that taps against the windows like nature's own meditation. The kind that makes the whole world feel slower, softer, more thoughtful. He opened the door to his big apartment. His very, very big apartment. The kind of home most people only see in movies or magazines. The kind of place with floor-to-ceiling windows, marble countertops, and rooms that echo when you walk through them alone. The kind of space that should feel like a palace but somehow feels empty. And then he stopped, right there in the doorway, frozen, his hand still on the doorknob, his briefcase still in his other hand. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. There was money on the table, lots and lots of money, stacks of cash, bundles tied with paper bands, bills arranged in neat, careful piles. More money than most people see in their whole lives. More money than sits in most bank accounts. The kind of money that makes your breath catch in your throat. And standing next to that money was his maid. Her name was Lila. She wore a yellow uniform with white trim. Crisp, clean, professional. Her hands were counting the money, slowly, carefully, methodically, like she was doing something very important. Like each bill mattered, like this was a sacred task that required her complete attention. Next to the money sat a small red box, a ring box, velvet and worn, the kind that holds something precious. He stood there, just watching, barely breathing. His heart was beating fast. His mind was racing. 1,000 thoughts crashed through his head like waves against rocks. What was happening? Was she stealing from him? Was this a betrayal? Should he call the police? Should he yell? Should he demand an explanation? But something made him stay quiet. Something in the way she stood. Something in her face. Something in the air of the room. She didn't look scared. She didn't look guilty. She didn't look like someone caught doing something wrong. She looked peaceful, calm, purposeful, like someone doing exactly what they were supposed to do. Like someone fulfilling a promise. Like someone on a mission that mattered more than anything else in the world. Let me tell you about this man. His name was Mr. Harrison, but everyone just called him Sir. Even people who'd known him for decades. Even business partners. Even distant relatives. He was the kind of man whose wealth created distance, whose success built walls. He was rich. Very, very rich. The kind of rich where you own buildings and companies and have more money than you can count. The kind of rich where people know your name before you enter a room, where your signature moves markets, where your decisions affect thousands of lives. But being rich didn't make him happy. You know why? Because 3 years ago, something terrible happened. His wife died. Her name was Eleanor, and she was the love of his life, his North Star, his anchor, the person who made him smile when nothing else could, the person who made everything make sense, the person who saw him not as Mr. Harrison, the billionaire, but as Henry, the man she fell in love with in college when he had nothing but dreams and determination. When she died, a part of him died too. The best part, the part that knew how to laugh, the part that noticed sunsets, the part that cared about more than profit margins and quarterly reports. He threw himself into his work, all day, every day, 16-hour days, 18-hour days, days that blurred into nights that blurred into days again. He thought if he stayed busy, the sadness would go away. He thought if he filled every moment with meetings and deals and decisions, there would be no room left for grief. But it didn't work. The sadness didn't go away. It didn't shrink. It didn't fade. The sadness just got bigger and bigger and bigger until it filled up his whole heart, until it colored everything gray, until he couldn't remember what joy felt like, until he moved through life like a ghost in his own story. Now let me tell you about Lila. Lila wasn't just a maid. She was special. She had a gift that most people don't have. The gift of presence, the gift of truly listening, the gift of making people feel seen and valued and heard. You see, a few years ago, before she ever worked for Mr. Harrison, Lila used to volunteer at a place called a hospice. Do you know what a hospice is? It's a special place where people go when they're very, very sick, when the doctors can't make them better anymore, when medicine has done all it can do. It's a place where people go to rest, to be comfortable, to find peace, to say goodbye to the world and the people they love. It's a sad place sometimes, a place of endings, a place of last words and final moments. But it's also a beautiful place, a sacred place, because that's where people tell the truth. That's where all the pretending stops. That's where people say the things they've been holding inside their whole lives, the thank yous that were never spoken, the apologies that waited too long, the love that was felt but never expressed. And Lila, she was the kind of person who knew how to listen, really listen, not just hear words, but understand the heart behind them. She would sit with people for hours, hold their hands when they were scared, bring them warm blankets when they were cold, tell them jokes when they needed to laugh, sit in silence when they needed quiet, read to them, pray with them, simply be there, fully present in their most vulnerable moments. One day, a woman came to the hospice, a woman who would change everything. Her name was Eleanor. Yes, the same Eleanor, Mr. Harrison's wife. Eleanor was sick, very sick. Cancer had spread through her body like wildfire. But her husband didn't know she was spending her afternoons at the hospice. She told him she was going to doctor appointments, which was true. But she didn't tell him about the hospice volunteer program she joined. She didn't tell him that she'd started preparing for the end. She didn't want to worry him more than necessary. Eleanor and Lila became friends. Good friends. Close friends. The kind of friends who tell each other secrets. The kind of friends who can sit together in comfortable silence. The kind of friends who understand each other without needing many words. They would sit by the window in the hospice common room, watch the birds gather at the feeder outside, drink tea from ceramic mugs that warmed their hands, and talk. Talk about life. Talk about love. Talk about what matters in the end. Eleanor told Lila about her life, about growing up poor but happy, about meeting Henry in college, about watching him build an empire, about the joy of their early years together, about how success had slowly changed him, about how wealth had created distance between him and the rest of the world. She said, "I love my husband. I love him so, so much, with everything I am, but I'm worried about him." "Why?" Lila asked, setting down her tea. "Because when I die, I think he's going to forget how to live. He's going to bury himself in work, in money, in spreadsheets and stock reports, in all the things that don't really matter, in all the things that seem important but are actually hollow. And he's going to forget about joy, about kindness, about laughter, about the smell of rain, about children playing, about all the small, beautiful things that make life worth living." Lila squeezed her hand. "What do you want me to do?" Eleanor smiled, a soft, sad smile, a smile that held both hope and sorrow. "I want to make a list," she said, and so she did. Over the next several weeks, as her body grew weaker but her spirit remained strong, she worked on it. She called it the Sparrow List. "Why sparrows?" Lila asked one rainy afternoon. "Because sparrows are small," Eleanor said, watching one hop along the windowsill. "Most people don't even notice them. They're not majestic like eagles. They're not colorful like cardinals. They're not rare like exotic birds. But they're everywhere, and they're important. They matter, just like the people on this list. Just like the small acts of kindness that nobody applauds, but that change everything." The Sparrow List had 12 names on it. 12 people in places that needed help. 12 opportunities to make a real difference. A small hospital that couldn't afford new equipment for their emergency room. A school with a leaking roof that was destroying books and making children learn in buckets and puddles. A diner that fed homeless kids for free but was running out of money and might have to close. A veteran who used to work in their building but now couldn't afford his medicine for his war injuries. A single mother with 3 jobs who was about to lose her apartment despite working 70 hours a week. A community theater that needed new lights so local artists could keep sharing their gifts. A youth center in a rough neighborhood that needed sports equipment to keep kids off dangerous streets. A senior home where residents never got to leave because they couldn't afford field trips. A scholarship fund for foster children who aged out of the system with nowhere to go. A free dental clinic that was closing because they couldn't pay rent. An animal shelter that was overcrowded and underfunded. A library in a poor neighborhood that couldn't afford new books. On and on the list went. 12 acts of kindness. 12 chances to change someone's life. 12 sparrows that deserve to be seen. Eleanor wrote it all down in a small notebook, a cloth notebook with a bird embroidered on the cover. She included addresses, contact names, specific needs, dollar amounts, everything Henry would need to make this happen. Then she did something else, something that took planning and secrecy and careful execution. She went to the bank. She took out money, cash, real, actual cash, and she divided it into 12 envelopes, each one carefully labeled, each one containing exactly what was needed, no more, no less. She put the envelopes in the safe in her apartment, the safe behind the painting in the living room, the abstract painting she'd bought at a gallery 30 years ago, the one Henry always said he didn't understand, but kept because she loved it. She told Lila the code, 6 numbers, their wedding anniversary. "When I'm gone," Eleanor said, her voice growing weaker now, "I want you to do this for me. I want you to take this money to these people, and I want you to take my husband with you. Don't let him just write a check. Don't let him send an assistant. Make him go. Make him see. Make him feel. Make him remember what it means to be human." "Your husband?" Lila said. "But he doesn't even know me. He doesn't know I exist." "He will," Eleanor said. "I'm going to make sure of it. I'm going to make sure you're there when he needs you most." And she did. Before Eleanor died, in one of her final acts of love and planning, she called the hospice director. She asked if they knew anyone who needed a job. Quiet work, easy work, housekeeping, someone trustworthy, someone kind, someone who understood grief. The director said, "I know someone. Her name is Lila. She's wonderful. She's been volunteering here for 3 years. She's one of the most compassionate people I've ever met." "Perfect," Eleanor whispered. "Can you help me arrange something?" And that's how Lila ended up working in Mr. Harrison's apartment. 2 months after Eleanor's funeral, when Henry was drowning in grief and barely functioning, Lila arrived for an interview. He barely looked at her, barely spoke, just nodded when the agency representative said she had excellent references. For months, she cleaned, she cooked, she did laundry. She was invisible, quiet, perfect. She moved through his home like a gentle ghost. She left meals in the refrigerator with reheating instructions. She made sure his shirts were pressed and his home was orderly. And she waited. She waited for the right moment. The moment Eleanor had told her would come. "You'll know when it's time," Eleanor had said. "You'll feel it. Trust your heart." And today was that moment. 3 years to the day since Eleanor passed, the anniversary, the day when grief feels freshest, the day when memories hurt most, the day when Henry needed to be reminded that life still held purpose. Back to the apartment, back to Mr. Harrison standing in the doorway, back to the money on the table, back to this moment that would change everything. "What?" he finally said. His voice was shaky, rough, like he hadn't used it in days. "What is this?" Lila looked up at him. She didn't look scared. She didn't look surprised that he was home early. She looked kind, ready. Like she'd been preparing for this conversation for 3 years. "Mr. Harrison," she said softly, "your wife asked me to do something for you, and today is the day I keep that promise." He blinked, confused, disoriented. "My wife, Eleanor?" "Yes, sir. But how do you know my wife? How could you possibly know Eleanor?" Lila smiled, a warm, sad, beautiful smile. "I was her friend. At the hospice, I sat with her during her last months, talked with her, listened to her, held her hand. She told me about you, about your life together, about how much she loved you, about how worried she was. Tears filled his eyes. Real tears. The first tears in months. You knew her? You knew Eleanor? Yes, sir. And she loved you very, very much. More than anything in this world. She worried about you. She wanted to make sure that when she was gone, you would remember how to be happy again, how to see the world clearly, how to find purpose beyond just making money. She picked up the red ring box. The velvet was soft and worn. She left this for you. He took the box with shaking hands, trembling fingers. He opened it slowly. Inside was Eleanor's wedding ring, the ring he put on her finger 30 years ago, the ring she wore every single day of their marriage, the ring that had witnessed every anniversary, every argument, every reconciliation, every ordinary Tuesday, every extraordinary moment. And underneath the ring was a letter, folded carefully. He unfolded it with reverent hands. The handwriting was Eleanor's, her beautiful looping script. My dearest love, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and it means Lila has done exactly what I asked her to do. I know you. I know you better than anyone in this world. I know you're probably working too much, sleeping too little, forgetting to eat properly, and forgetting to look at the stars, forgetting to notice the small miracles that happen every day. So I made you a list, the Sparrow list, 12 people who need help, small help, quiet help, the kind of help that doesn't make headlines, the kind that doesn't win awards, but the kind that changes lives, the kind that matters. I want you to deliver this money with Lila. Go to these places, meet these people, look them in the eye, shake their hands, see what kindness looks like up close, see what real need looks like, see what gratitude looks like. Don't just write a check from your office. Don't send an assistant. Don't handle this through your foundation. Go, see it, feel it, be part of it. Let it change you, and maybe, just maybe, you'll remember why we're here. Not to make money, not to build empires, not to have our names on buildings, but to make a difference, to notice the sparrows, to help the helpers, to be kind. I love you forever, Eleanor. He couldn't breathe. His chest felt tight. His vision blurred. Tears poured down his face. He hadn't cried since the funeral, since that terrible day when they lowered her into the ground, and he thought his heart would stop beating. But now the dam broke. He cried for his wife, for all the ways he'd loved her and all the ways he'd failed her. He cried for all the time he wasted after she died, for all the months spent in gray numbness. He cried for the life he forgot to live, for the purpose he abandoned, for the man he used to be. Lila waited, quiet, patient. She'd learned patience at the hospice. She'd learned that grief has its own timeline, that healing cannot be rushed. When he finally looked up, when the tears slowed, when he could breathe again, he said in a broken whisper, "When do we start?" She smiled, a smile that held hope and promise and the beginning of something beautiful. Right now. They gathered the first envelope. The address was written on the front in Eleanor's handwriting, St. Mary's Free Clinic. They took a taxi, not his fancy car with the driver, not the Mercedes that cost more than most houses. A regular taxi, yellow, ordinary, the kind that smells like air freshener and has torn upholstery. They drove through parts of the city he never visited, neighborhoods he only saw from highway overpasses while being driven to important meetings. Neighborhoods with chain-link fences and graffiti, with corner stores and laundromats, with children playing in the streets and old men sitting on stoops. The clinic was small, old. The paint was peeling. The sign out front was faded, but the lights were on and the door was open. Inside, a tired nurse was sitting at the desk. Her scrubs were wrinkled. Her eyes had dark circles. Her name tag said Maria. Lila walked up to her. Mr. Harrison hung back, suddenly unsure. "Excuse me," Lila said. "We have something for you." She placed the envelope on the desk. Maria looked confused, suspicious. "What's this?" "Open it," Lila said gently. Maria opened the envelope carefully. Her eyes went wide, impossibly wide. Inside was $10,000. Cash. Real cash. more cash than she'd ever seen in her life, and a note in Eleanor's handwriting that said, "Keep saving lives. The lights stay on because of you." Maria's hands flew to her mouth. I don't understand. Who sent this? Is this real? Is this some kind of joke? A friend, Lila said. A friend who believed in what you're doing here. Maria started crying, right there at the desk, sobbing. We were going to close, she said through tears. Next month. We can't afford the rent. We can't afford medicine. We can't pay our staff. I didn't know what we were going to do. I've been lying awake every night wondering how to tell the patients, how to tell the people who depend on us, where they'll go, who'll take care of them. Mr. Harrison watched, and something inside him cracked open. He watched this tired nurse cry tears of relief. He watched her hug Lila like she was an angel sent from heaven. He watched her press the envelope to her chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. He watched her say thank you over and over like a prayer. And something inside him started to wake up. Something that had been sleeping for 3 years. The part of him that cared about more than profit. The part that remembered what actually matters. The second stop was a school, Washington Elementary. It sat in a neighborhood where the houses were small and the yards were filled with children's toys, where families worked hard but never seemed to get ahead, where parents juggled 2 jobs and still struggled to pay the bills. They met the librarian. Her name was Mrs. Chen. She was old, sweet, the kind of teacher who remembered every student's name even 20 years later. The kind who spent her own money on books and supplies. The kind who stayed late tutoring kids who were struggling. The kind who believed that every child deserved a chance. Her library was her pride and joy, or it had been. Now it was falling apart. The library had buckets on the floor. Yellow buckets. Orange buckets, catching drips from the ceiling where the roof had given up trying to keep the rain out. Roof leaks, she explained, gesturing sadly at the buckets placed strategically between shelves. Every time it rains, we have to move the books. Some of them have been damaged, ruined, books that can't be replaced, books that children loved, and I can't afford to buy new ones. The school can't afford to fix the roof. We've been asking for 3 years. Her voice cracked when she said it. 3 years of watching her library slowly deteriorate. 3 years of moving buckets and drying books and hoping the next storm wouldn't be the one that destroyed everything. Lila handed her an envelope. Mrs. Chen took it with trembling hands. Inside was $15,000 and a list of roofers who would do the work at a fair price. Honest contractors who wouldn't overcharge a struggling school. Mrs. Chen sat down, right there. She just sat down right there on the floor among the buckets and cried. Not delicate tears, big heaving sobs. The kids, she whispered, the kids can have their library back. They can have a safe place to read, a dry place to learn, a place where books don't have to be rescued from rain. Mr. Harrison helped her up. This small, elderly woman who'd spent decades giving everything to children who weren't even her own. Thank you, she said, hugging him tight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't know what this means. You can't know. But he was beginning to. He'd been thanked 1,000,000 times in his life. At galas where he donated money for tax write-offs. At ceremonies where plaques were unveiled with his name. At ribbon cuttings where photographers captured his smile for the society pages. But this felt different. This felt real. This felt like it mattered. The third stop was a diner. Frank's Diner. It was small, old-fashioned, the kind of place with red vinyl booths and a jukebox that didn't work anymore, with laminated menus and coffee that came in thick ceramic mugs, with photos on the walls of the neighborhood from 50 years ago, with regulars who had their own seats and their own orders that didn't need to be spoken. The owner was a big man named Frank. He had kind eyes and rough hands. Hands that had cooked thousands of meals, hands that had flipped burgers and scrambled eggs and made pancakes for generations of families. We feed kids, Frank said simply. Kids who don't have dinner at home, kids whose parents work night shifts, kids whose refrigerators are empty, kids who are hungry. We don't ask questions. We don't make them feel ashamed. We just feed them. How many kids? Mr. Harrison asked, looking around the small diner. 20, 30. Some nights more. They come in after school, do their homework in the booths. We give them a meal. Sometimes it's the only real meal they get all day. Who pays for it? Frank shrugged his broad shoulders. I do. Me and my wife. We don't make much. This place barely breaks even most months. But we make enough to share. That's what you do, isn't it? You share what you have. His simplicity was profound. His generosity was humbling. Lila gave him the envelope, $8,000. Enough to feed those kids for 6 months? Maybe longer if Frank stretched it the way he stretched everything. Frank didn't cry, but his voice cracked when he said, God bless you. God bless whoever sent you here. Those kids, they're good kids. They deserve to eat. They deserve to not go to bed hungry. Mr. Harrison shook his hand. This man who had so little but gave so much. This man who understood something that Mr. Harrison had forgotten. That wealth isn't measured in bank accounts. That richness comes from giving, not taking. Stop after stop. Envelope after envelope. Each one a small miracle. Each one a life changed. Each one a reminder of what actually matters. A veteran named James got money for his medicine and a new furnace for his house. He wept when they handed him the envelope. This man who'd served his country with honor and been forgotten by almost everyone. He showed them photos of his grandchildren. He told them about the nightmares that still came from the war. He thanked them with a salute that made Mr. Harrison's throat tight. A single mom named Angela got 3 months of rent. She worked as a nurse's aide, a grocery store clerk, and cleaned offices at night. 3 jobs, and she still couldn't make ends meet. When they gave her the envelope, she collapsed into a chair and put her face in her hands. My babies, she whispered. My babies won't be homeless. Thank you. Thank you. A community theater got new microphones and lights. The director, a passionate woman named Carmen, showed them the stage where children performed, where teenagers found confidence, where seniors rediscovered joy. Art saves lives, she said. You just saved ours. A youth center got sports equipment, basketballs, soccer balls, baseball gloves. The director, a former gang member turned mentor named Marcus, explained how sports kept kids off dangerous streets. Every kid playing basketball is a kid not getting into trouble, he said. You just gave us the tools to save more lives. A senior home got a new van so residents could go on field trips. The administrator, a warm woman named Patricia, explained how many residents never left the building, never saw a park, never went to a museum. You just gave them the world back, she said, tears streaming down her face. A scholarship fund for foster children who aged out of the system received enough money to send 3 kids to college. The social worker who ran it, a tired woman named Jennifer, said simply, these kids have nothing, no family, no support, no safety net. Education is their only way out. You just gave them hope. A free dental clinic that was closing received enough to stay open for another year. The dentist, a kind man named Dr. Patel, explained how many people suffered in silence with dental pain because they couldn't afford care. Pain affects everything, he said. Work, sleep, mental health. You just ended a lot of suffering. An animal shelter that was overcrowded and underfunded received money for food and medical care. The shelter director, a woman covered in dog hair named Susan, showed them cages full of abandoned pets. Every animal deserves love, she said. You just gave us the ability to keep them safe until they find their families. A library in a poor neighborhood that couldn't afford new books received a donation that would fill their shelves. The head librarian, an energetic young man named Terrence, explained how books were portals to other worlds for kids who had so little. Reading changes lives, and he said, you just changed hundreds of them. Each stop, Mr. Harrison saw something he'd never seen before. Real people, real problems, real struggles, real gratitude, real humanity. He saw the faces behind the statistics, the stories behind the numbers, the beating hearts behind the budget reports. He'd spent 3 years in an office moving money around on spreadsheets, making rich people richer, making his empire bigger, chasing goals that meant nothing. And in one day, he'd done more good than in all those months combined. By the time they delivered the 12th envelope, It was late at night. The city lights were glowing. The streets were quiet. They sat in the taxi driving back to his apartment. He was quiet. Not sad quiet. Not empty quiet. Peaceful quiet. Full quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from doing something that matters. "Thank you," he finally said to Lila, his voice soft but sincere. "For what?" "For keeping your promise to Eleanor. For showing me this. For not giving up on me. For waiting 3 years to do this. For caring enough to see it through." Lila smiled, that warm, knowing smile. "There's one more thing," she said. She pulled out the cloth notebook, Eleanor's sparrow list, the original, with the bird embroidered on the cover. "Your wife wanted this to keep going," Lila said, handing it to him. "She didn't want it to end with 12 envelopes. She wanted it to grow, to keep helping people. Small acts of kindness, one at a time, week after week, year after year. She wanted you to keep noticing the sparrows." Mr. Harrison took the notebook. He ran his fingers over the bird on the cover, the same way Eleanor must have run her fingers over it. He could feel her presence in it, her love, her wisdom, her hope for him. "Will you help me?" he asked Lila, looking up at her with eyes that were finally alive again. "I don't know how to do this. I've forgotten how to see people, but I want to learn. I want to be the man Eleanor believed I could be." "Of course," she said. "That's why I'm here." And so they did. Mr. Harrison and Lila started the Sparrow Fund. Not a big charity with fancy galas and board meetings. Not a foundation with his name in gold letters. Just a simple fund. A quiet fund. A fund that actually helped people. They visited neighborhoods, walked the streets, listened to people, asked what they needed, actually listened to the answers. Sometimes it was money. Sometimes it was time. Sometimes it was just someone who cared enough to show up. Someone who saw them. Someone who remembered their name. Someone who treated them like they mattered. Mr. Harrison changed, really changed. Not overnight. Change is never overnight, but slowly, steadily, day by day. He smiled more. Real smiles, not the polite, professional smiles of business meetings, but genuine smiles that reached his eyes. He slept better, without the pills he'd been taking, without the nightmares that used to wake him at 3 a.m. He started seeing the city differently, not as a place to conquer, not as a game board for his business moves, but as a place to love, a place full of people, real people, people with dreams and struggles and hopes and fears. He started noticing things again, the way sunlight hit buildings in the morning, the sound of children laughing in parks, the smell of street vendor food, the faces of people on the subway, the sparrows, always the sparrows. 1 year later, on the anniversary of Eleanor's death, Mr. Harrison and Lila stood in his apartment, the same apartment where this journey began. On the table was the red ring box. Inside was Eleanor's ring. He'd kept it close all year, a reminder, a promise, and next to it was a new notebook, a new sparrow list. This one was thicker, fuller, 50 names this time, 50 more chances to make a difference, 50 more sparrows waiting to be seen. "Do you think she'd be proud?" Mr. Harrison asked, his voice soft with emotion. Lila smiled, that beautiful, warm smile. "I think she's smiling right now," she said. And somewhere in whatever place exists beyond this one, Eleanor was doing exactly that, smiling, watching, proud. Because the man she loved had found his way back, not to her. She knew he could never come back to her, but to himself, to the man he used to be, to the man he was always meant to be, and to the kind of life that matters, the kind built on small moments, small kindnesses, small gestures that ripple outward, small sparrows. That's the end of the story. But you know what? It doesn't have to end. Not really, because every single day, in every single city, in every single neighborhood, there are people who need help, people who are tired, people who are scared, people who are struggling, people who are doing their best but barely surviving, people who just need someone to notice them, someone to see them, someone to care. And maybe, just maybe, you could be that someone. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to be powerful. You don't need to be special. You don't need millions of dollars or a foundation or a plan. You just need to care. You just need to pay attention. You just need to show up. You just need to be kind. That's what Eleanor taught Mr. Harrison. That's what this story is really about. It's not about money. It's not about grand gestures. It's not about making headlines or getting recognition. It's about waking up. It's about seeing the world clearly. It's about noticing the people around you. It's about remembering what really matters. It's about understanding that every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. It's about choosing kindness when you could choose indifference. It's about showing up when you could stay home. It's about giving when you could keep. So here's my question for you. What's on your sparrow list? Who in your life needs help? Who needs a kind word? Who needs someone to notice them? Who needs a helping hand? Who needs to know they're not alone? Think about it. Really think about it. Not in a vague someday kind of way, but right now, today, this week, and then do something about it. Call that friend who's been struggling. Help that neighbor who needs a hand. Donate to that cause you've been meaning to support. Volunteer at that place you always drive past. Smile at the cashier who looks exhausted. Leave a generous tip for the server who's having a hard day. Pay for the coffee of the person behind you in line. Write a thank you note to someone who changed your life, because that's how the world changes. Not with big, dramatic moments, not with grand gestures that get televised, not with speeches or rallies or movements, but with small, quiet acts of love. One person at a time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time, one sparrow at a time. The world doesn't need more billionaires making donations for tax write-offs. It needs more people who care, more people who notice, more people who show up, more people who choose kindness. You can be that person. Starting today, starting right now. Eleanor knew this truth. She knew that in the end, the only thing that matters is how we treated people, how we loved, how we helped, how we showed up. Everything else fades away. The money, the status, the achievements, the possessions. But kindness echoes forever. Kindness changes lives. Kindness creates ripples that spread farther than you can imagine. So go create some ripples. Go notice some sparrows. Go be the person who shows up. Go be the reason someone believes in goodness. Go be the proof that kindness still exists. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think, if it made you feel something real, we'd love for you to join our family. Subscribe to Emotional Stories on YouTube. We share stories like this every single week. Stories that matter, stories that move you, stories that remind you what it means to be human, stories that make you want to be better, stories that restore your faith in people. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and come back for more stories that will make you cry, make you think, and make you believe in the goodness of people. Because we all need reminders that kindness still exists, that love still wins, that good people are everywhere, that small acts of goodness can change the world, that hope is real, that we're all in this together. Subscribe to Emotional Stories today, and let's keep spreading hope, one story at a time. Let's keep noticing the sparrows. Let's keep making the world a little bit better, one story at a time, one act of kindness at a time, one person at a time. See you in the next video. And remember, you have the power to be someone's miracle today.